Hello, and welcome back to Storytime with Scott Boss. This week we're continuing the Graveyard Gazette. We're on chapter 17. They caravanned over to the Anchor Baptist parking lot while Bruce made a pit stop at home to pick up his bolt cutters. Carrie, Angela, and Johnny stood, shoulder to shoulder, transfixed on the building with the soft yellow glow coming from the window. When the shadow of a figure crossed it, Carrie felt his hand wrapping around Angela's, taking a deep breath as he did. "You see that?" asked Johnny. "That's what you were talking about, huh?" "Mm-hmm." Angela locked her fingers into Carrie's. Shortly later, Bruce pulled in, got out, and stood next to them with his bolt cutter at his side. "Well, goddamn," said Bruce. "Looks like someone is home." They crossed the street together, Angela and Carrie still holding hands. On any other night, Johnny would have had questions, or at least comments, but that night, he was so focused on the building he didn't say a word. Bruce raised the bolt cutter and took one last look around, then clamped it down. It took him a couple tries and a lot of grunting, but finally the chain broke free. Johnny helped pull it off the gates. They creaked open with a horrible grating sound. The building was 100 feet ahead, the path leading to it overgrown and decayed. You could barely tell there had been blacktop there before. There were gravestones on either side as their feet crunched on some of the last leaves of fall. The black fence surrounded the graveyard, lit up by the moonlight. The only exit was the gate they'd entered, and each of them had the passing thought that any second it would close on its own, locking them in. The claustrophobia was setting in as they approached the building. It was small, the size of a normal mid-sized living room from the outside. There were brown vines snaking up every side of it, tucking into the edge of the roof. They stopped about 5 feet back, all at the same time, as if an invisible wall prevented them from going further. There was a gray door that appeared to be the only entrance. The handle looked rusty and sagged in its place. "So," said Johnny, "who's doing the honors?" "Not me," said Bruce. "I took care of the first door. It's someone else's turn." The yellow light in the window darkened. Carrie felt a wave of fear drag down his body as the silhouette of a person stood in place. They couldn't tell if it was looking out at them or not. The window was too dirty and foggy to tell. Angela had her nails in Carrie's arm, gripping tighter. "Ow," said Carrie, coming out of his trance. "Sorry," she replied, then whispered, "We can just leave if you want. We don't have to." "No," said Carrie. "We need to see." He released her arm from his and moved to the door, knocking 3 times, then stepping back a few feet. Angela watched the window as the figure shifted but didn't completely leave its place. Johnny looked back and forth between the window and the door. "Hello?" called Carrie. "Anyone here?" Angela signaled Carrie that the figure had moved from the window. He stepped back a few more feet, and they all watched in unison as the rusty handle lowered on the door. It pushed open, and the first thing they saw was loose gray hair, then the face of an old man. He was still holding the handle while he looked them over. As if they were vacuum salesmen, he was thinking of how to make it go away. "Good evening," Carrie gave a quick wave. "I'm Carrie, and these are my friends. We were wondering if you know anything about the paper that's out there each morning." He pointed back towards the front gates and was glad to see they were still open. The man looked him up and down a few times and grunted, and then said, "It's about time. Come in and out of the cold. We'll talk." Carrie's group shared glances with each other, nodded with nervous eyes, then followed the man inside the small building. Inside was larger than it seemed from the outside, but not by much. They all they but they all found a place to stand at the side of a large wooden table. The man closed the door behind them, and the warmth of the room swept over them. It felt good despite there being no origin for the source of the heat. A yellow light bulb with a pole chain hung in the middle of the ceiling, illuminating the entire rectangular room. On one side was the window and a small stool next to it. On the other was an old machine of some sort, about as big as an oven. The man walked around the table so he was facing them. He was wearing blue jeans with dark stains all over them and a flannel shirt. "I'm Cleve, the caretaker of this here graveyard. I'd tell you to have a seat, but I've only got the one stool over there. You can fight over it if you like." No one moved. "You're the caretaker?" Johnny observed the room. There was no lawn equipment, no shovels, wheelbarrows, not so much as a spade. What do you take care of? Not the landscaping, if you couldn't tell, Cleve laughed, slowly at first, then building into a choking wheeze. He was the only one laughing, though he didn't seem to mind. When he stopped, he looked at the group and smiled. You needn't be afraid of me. I'm not going to hurt you. Still, he didn't get much out of them. All right, then. You want to know about the paper. Are you sure of that? The group nodded. Well, I'm the one that puts it out. He tugged his shirt, seemingly to show his pride in his duties. Do you like it? I use the old press right over there. Cleve pointed to the machine. You put it out? Asked Johnny. Cleve nodded with a tight-lipped smile. How do you know? Carrie leaned on the table, just daring to rest his fingertips on the old wood. The stories? Cleve raised his scraggly eyebrows. I'm just relaying the message. Of who's going to die? Asked Angela. Yep, and it's nice to see you again. Cleve looked Angela over. This guy reads his news, pointing at Carrie. Good for him. Good for you. Angela stepped back, crossing her arms. Whose messages are you relaying? Asked Carrie. Cleve leaned in and spoke in a raspy whisper. The shadow. Angela's breath caught in her throat. Cleve stepped back with a sly smile. He pointed at Angela. She's seen him, haven't you? I know that look. Had it myself the first time. Angela started. I was there when he... Yep, that's him. It was supposed to just be the mom, but you all, he pointed his fingers around, have been busy little bees. But we've been saving them, said Johnny. Exactly, said Cleve. Save a couple. Good for you. Save too many, and you draw his attention, if you know what I mean. A collective gasp went up from the group. The bus, said Carrie. You got it, said Cleve. Then going back the next night? He clicked his tongue. Well, that was a mistake. What does that mean? Asked Carrie. It means life and death are in balance, but you all tipped the scales. What were we supposed to do? Asked Bruce. Let them kids die? Cleve raised his hands. Hold on now. I just put out the paper. I'm not here to tell you what to do. But you do put it out, said Carrie. Why? Are you just baiting us? Not my job to ask questions. Then what is your job? Asked Johnny. Paper boy? Caretaker, Cleve reminded. Look, I've said enough as it is. You broke in here. You got your warning. Now I've got a paper to print. I was almost done until you interrupted. He turned and walked to the machine, sliding some letter templates around before grunting at it and pulling a lever. The group was huddled by the door as he worked, trying to decide what to do from there. Yes, sir. Cleve held up a warm newspaper. Gotta get this out to the gate. He stopped and looked at Carrie, holding out the paper. You know what? Do you think you could do this one for me? Carrie took the paper, not wanting to read it, but not having the willpower to put it down. The headline was clear. Laura Mathis, 38, found dead at home. Motherfucker. Carrie looked up at Cleve. Cleve held up his hands, fingers stained black with ink this time. Remember, just the messenger over here. I can print it or not. Still gonna happen. Unless... Unless what? Asked Carrie. You said we've drawn his attention. If we try to stop this, will something else terrible happen? Like what happened to Michelle? Hey, I'm no death advisor. All this is up to you. The first time you picked up the paper, it was up to you to keep it to yourself. He held out one hand, or to share it with your friends, then held out another. Carrie stared at the picture of Laura. It was an outfit he didn't recall. Her hair was different, but it was Laura. It hurt him deep down to have this be the way he got to see her again. She looked good. She looked happy, as she'd said. His heart ached. If she could be happy without him, good. He had to accept that after having her in his life for almost 20 years, her happiness was still important to him, even if it wasn't him being the one to make her happy anymore. But this picture was telling him she'd never be happy again. She'd be dead. There had to be another solution. I forgot to mention, said Cleve, breaking Carrie's trance. That one is a special edition. What the hell does that mean? Asked Johnny. Turn the page. Find out. Carrie shuddered as he flipped the page. The others had always been blank, like they were just there to give it the weight of a real paper. Carrie saw another headline. Bruce, what are your parents' names? God damn. Bruce looked at the article listing Janice and Byron Robinson, also found dead in their home. Bruce shook his head for a minute when Johnny hesitantly asked, Anything on the next page? Bruce handed it over and put his head in his hands. Johnny turned the page, frowned, then saw Angela at his side. Mom, she said, running her fingers across the picture. She hadn't seen her in years, and the age showed on her face. She could feel Carrie's hand on her shoulder, and she turned so he could wrap her in a hug. Johnny was left with the paper, and the decision to turn the page, or drop it and run. He turned the page and confirmed what he thought all along. Mark, he said, he's a bastard, but he doesn't deserve this. Your brother? Asked Carrie, looking over Angela's shoulder as she hugged him. Yeah. Johnny flipped to the next page, squinting his eyes, hoping it was over. The page was blank, as were the following 3 pages until he reached the end. Huh. Guess Michelle got off easy, just a bullet in the arm. Could have been in the head, said Angela, releasing Carrie. True, said Johnny. Carrie looked at Cleve, who wandered over to peer out the window, standing on the stool so he could get a good view. So what? Asked Carrie. We're just supposed to watch our loved ones die? Is this our payback? Cleve took his time at the window, as if there was something to see besides dead, overgrown graveyard. There is no payback, he said finally. Only replacement. He stepped down from the stool and turned to face them. Now, if you would please take the paper to the gates. What you do with it once it crosses the gate is up to you. The group could see they weren't getting anything more out of him. They headed to the door and Carrie pushed it open, feeling the cold breeze as soon as he did. They started filing out when Johnny turned back. One last question for you. Cleve sighed but just stood with his hands on his hips, waiting. Are you alive or dead? Cleve laughed at the question. I hadn't really thought about it. Since you asked, I'd say I'm somewhere in between. Huh. Johnny shrugged as they left the building and closed the door. By the time they reached the gate, the light had gone out in the building. Did that mean Cleve had went to bed? There was no bed, only the table. They didn't have time to give it further thought. Replacement, Carrie mulled over the word. Bruce and Johnny swung the gates closed, looking at the cut chain. Angela wrapped it around the best she could, and they crossed the street. After Bruce threw the bolt cutter back in his trunk, they huddled in an open parking spot. So, said Carrie, it sounds like we all have decisions to make. I've already made mine, said Johnny. I love my brother, but if it means I'm taking his place, that ain't happening. That's cold, said Bruce. But I don't blame you. My parents are in their 70s. They're on more medications than I can count. Mom has diabetes and Dad probably got something worse, but he won't get it checked out. He paused to shake his head. I'm not saying I want to lose them, but if it comes to me going in their place, I'm taking the selfish route too. But isn't this our fault? Asked Angela. We messed with fate and now they're dying because of us. You're right. Bruce turned away. You're goddamn right. We didn't know that, said Johnny. We thought we were helping. But now they're in here, Carrie smacked the paper with his backhand. I should have never said anything. I should have left the fucking thing alone. I'm sorry, guys. No, your families are in here too. Angela put an arm around him. I wouldn't be here if you'd left it alone. Carrie sighed. We don't know that. I might have ended up there anyway. What does that mean? Asked Johnny. Carrie looked at Angela and she nodded. She was in the paper, said Carrie. I found her on Clifton Ridge. He stopped and she took over. I was planning to jump, said Angela. Oh, fuck, said Johnny. Should I ask why? That's a story for another night. So when you saw her in the paper, you went to find her? Asked Bruce. So she was the first. Carrie dropped his chin. Not exactly. He could feel Angela's hand on his back. I was thinking about jumping myself. Johnny and Bruce's eyes widened. Carrie, man, Bruce put a meaty hand on Carrie's shoulder. I had no idea. Shit, me either. Johnny did the same. I guess that makes us pretty shitty friends. It's not your fault, said Carrie. I was just in a bad place. Maybe I should have talked to somebody. Not easy to do, said Johnny. I went to couples counseling with Kathy. Her idea, not mine. I wanted to punch the goddamn guy in the face through most of the session. Well, when this is all over, we're all going to counseling, said Carrie. Think they have a group session for nighttime newspaper survivors? Asked Bruce. Graveyard Gazette, said Carrie. Angela smiled. Daily Dead? Johnny looked at them all. You all have cute little names for it? How sweet. Well, said Bruce, what do you call it? The goddamn paper, the one we're trying to forget about for the rest of our lives. The group agreed silently. The cold of the early morning was causing them to shiver. The headlines that day weighed on them more than any others. It was almost fun up to that point, reading the future obituaries and being able to play God a bit. Now the game was spoiled. I think I know what I'm going to do, said Bruce, breaking the silence. Oh, really? Carrie eyed his friend, hoping for some insight he hadn't thought of yet. With your parents? Yep. I'm just going to go there and be with them. To the end. I mean, it didn't say how they died, just that it happened at home. What if it's an axe murder or gunman or something? Asked Johnny. I guess I'm willing to take that chance. But if you stop him, Bruce shrugged. I don't think it is, said Carrie. How would you know? Asked Johnny. Because all those deaths we read about happened in their home. The way it was worded was just like, when old people pass in the night. What if it's just leaving out the details? Asked Johnny, just to fuck with us some more. It totally could be, said Carrie, but from what we've seen, it would at least tell us the cause of death. This time it feels improvised. Johnny laughed. That's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard you say, and I've heard some things, man. He stared at the stars to recall a memory, then pointed at Carrie. Like when you said you weren't interested in Laura when you first met her. Oh, come on, said Carrie. She was 16. And then when you said you'd let Laura get away because you'd gotten lazy. Are these all going to be all about Laura? Didn't you say the mailman's legs were just as nice as Laura's? He did, said Bruce. Good Lord, that was a joke. I make that joke with everybody. Bruce was laughing. You too. I needed that. He patted them each on the shoulder. Since I might be walking to my death here soon. Shit, don't remind me, said Johnny. I might be doing the same. You stealing my idea? Yeah, I think I might. Just seems right, you know. Johnny turned to Angela and Carrie. What about you two? Carrie looked to Angela, then back. I honestly don't even know where she lives. Laura, that is. I mean, she's in Boone near her parents, but besides that, he shrugged. So go to them, said Johnny. Don't you at least want a chance to see her one more time? Carrie nodded, feeling his face flush. It wasn't just memories. It wasn't just the love that he still held for his ex-wife. It was Angela, too, standing there, listening to all this. Their romance had been short and odd up to that point, but there was still something between them. Yet you couldn't compete with history, could you? I guess I will, said Carrie. Maybe I won't stick around for all of it, but just to say goodbye. Shit. He threw the paper on the ground. This is fucked. How can we have to decide this? Because we played the game, said Bruce, looking stoic. We played God, and it turns out it's a shitty job. They shared a group hug, lamenting the absence of Michelle. Once again, Carrie and Angela were left, watching the other cars pull out of Anchor Baptist Church, likely for the last time. So, said Carrie, you never said if you had a plan. For your mom, that is. I know, Angela bit her lower lip. It's different for me. You still don't forgive her, huh? She shook her head. I don't see how I can. When I think about it, I don't know how you would either, but Carrie stopped. There was no but in this case. There was no experience he could pull from to match being raped by your stepfather while your birth mother turned a blind eye, or just outright didn't believe you. She's still in New York, right? Yep, I probably couldn't get there if I tried. You think about calling her? If I call her, she's going to ask about Maya. But you don't have to tell her that. Say she's fine. Would it make a difference at this point? What if she wants her to come to the phone or tries her cell phone? I don't know. Just tell her she's sleeping or something. Or don't. It's up to you. Angela hugged him. Let's not talk about it, okay? It's been a lot of death lately. Works for me. He looked over her shoulder at her car for the first time that morning, and he noticed it was more trashed than usual. There were shirts hanging in the back and boxes piled up around them. Are you taking stuff in for donations or something? She looked back, then pulled away from him. No, that's another story. Okay. Carrie watched her, waiting for a clue that she was going to tell him the story or not. Should I ask? Don't ask. But do you mind if I ask a favor? Go for it. Can I stay at your place tonight? Well, sure. Carrie looked back at her car. Did something happen? She did a quick head shake. Don't ask, please. All right. Sorry. They were both shivering, standing across from Burmington Memorial Gardens at close to 5 in the morning. Want to get out of here? Asked Carrie. We're about due for some sleep, or breakfast, or both. Both sounds nice. That's the end of chapter 17. Come back next week for chapter 18. We're nearing the end.